Right on. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick transition over onto bringing Terry onto the screen here, and who's joining us from Vancouver Island. So let's bring, I'm just going to unmute you, Terry, and then I'm going to pin you to the spotlight. So we've got you ready to go there. All right.
Good day. Can you hear
there we
me?
go. We can hear you now, Terry. Thank you so much for being
Great.
here. Really excited to hear from you.
I enjoyed that natto conversation or presentation a lot. It was fantastic. Having eaten it in Japan several times and even here on Vancouver Island, I really like your take on it, and those bite bits are going to be fantastic. So thanks a lot, Eli.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're just going to dive right in. We've got the next most incredible hour to spend with Dr. Terry Willard. I've had the pleasure of working with him directly in person on Fermentation Festival. Sorry, not Fermentation Festival. We did a 14-part series back in 2014, and it was a great time. And you had shown me a lot of stuff. I learned a lot, and I know I'm excited to learn more. You gave us, for this version, tonight, a 25-page recipe booklet with lots of bonus material. So we're really excited to dive into your offering tonight. I know you've got lots to share, so we will just go ahead right away and dive right in.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. There's no question, Tsukemonos, Tsukemonis, Tsukemonas. Oh my God, there's so many different ways to say it. How can you say it? But my Japanese colleagues usually call it Tsukemonos. And you can work with this in many different ways. And I've got all kinds of things to share with you. But the best thing here is to share it with your mic, with your mouth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive in and share my screen with you. The host has to give me sharing capabilities. So host, give me the capability.
Okay, there we go. That should be working now.
Okie dokie, let's do that. And share. We are good to go.
All right, perfect.
And tell me if you're getting the full screen just by itself, or you're getting the multiple screen with a whole bunch of little guys below.
Yeah, we're getting the little guys on the side along with your main screen.
The little guys meaning my my actual slides?
Yeah, we can see the previews. So 1, 2, 3.
Sometimes it swaps out on me. How about now?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Sasha also dealt with this issue as well. So
are you just seeing the one screen, or are you seeing both?
We're seeing probably what you see in terms of we've got.
I've got 3 screens in front of me, so I'm seeing all kinds of stuff. So I'll swap it out one more time because there's different ways to swap it out. How about now? Are you just seeing the actual screen?
No.
Okay.
So what we can do is we could try making you a host in that regard.
It should not make any difference.
Oh, okay.
In the sense that since I've done this so many times with various people, I think this is the 7th one this week. It's just sometimes hard to get the mouse to do the right thing. Okay, Toki. Sorry about this. It's nice.
Yeah, no worries. All good.
Actually, to see the actual screen. Okay, I'm going to put that. I'm going to go like that to a large degree, and I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share it again because it might be that I was trying to share it at the wrong time.
There we go. We got it now. That's perfect.
Perfect. That's the way we want to do. Again, the technology is absolutely fantastic, but sometimes it's a little bit scattered. Now, I'm not getting a chance to see my own face. And the only reason I want to see my own face is so I can move it around a little bit when it is being in the center. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll try to deal with it the way it is. So welcome to our Tsukemono class here. And yes, back in 2013 and 2014. Malcolm and myself did a 14-week course on this, and that is still available, by the way, through Wild Rose College if you're interested. This was about 1/2 of one lesson, and I've expanded it out here. And there's several reasons I expanded it out. Probably the biggest thing is, well, that was 6 to 7 years ago, and I've learned an awful lot since. For several reasons I've learned this is, one of the reasons is I've spent a fair amount of time in Japan. I'm lucky enough to have a product line in Japan, and every once in a while, I end up going to Japan and doing a lecture tour. That was the case last fall. First of all, I did several weeks in China for the 10th International Mushroom Festival or Symposium. And that was it. I did that with 2 of my sons, Yarrow. Some of you might know Yarrow Willard, the Herbal Jedi, and he put a whole bunch of it on YouTube, so you can follow some of our adventures there, going up into the mountains to get reishi and various growing barns, and it was a lot of exciting. That's the good news. The bad news is we did go through Wuhan, not the very best time to go through Wuhan, as it were, and I ended up spending a little bit of my time in Japan sick in a hotel. But besides that, my lecture tour there, I got to see all kinds of different Tsukemonos in various locations. So partly what I'm going to be doing here is giving you a little travel log of my adventures in those parts of the world. But I'd have to start off with saying that Tsukemonos is one of the best kept Japanese secrets. When you say Tsukemono, it's tempting to say that tea, but literally it's a silent tea. It really means steeped in things, or another way of saying it, pickled things. I like to call it quick pickles, or as Malcolm said earlier, the quickles. You can find it everywhere. There's all kinds of stores in Japan that are dedicated towards it. Some of the various shops, but by far my favorite place is going into Kyoto, and where you have huge marketplaces which have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different forms of Tsukemonos. I also have been able to get into some of the factories where they made it and little cuisine things. So we'll go on a little bit of a venture around there and see how that works. These are some of the fermentating pots that you'll see right in the stores. These are some of the places in Kyoto where you can just go pull those things into your cart and buy them, or you can go into a restaurant and get them looking like this. This would be an average everyday thing that you would be served in almost any meal you can think of there. Again, we're looking at a little bit more of it. If you're using another word in front of it, you would call it a zouk. So a miso zouk would be something where you would have a miso fermentation bed, and that will be a miso zouk. And we'll go into that very briefly as we go along, but that's a special type of fermentation bed that we actually did in that fermentation course with Malcolm 7 years ago. And if you take that course, you'll get to see how to do it. I'll talk about it briefly here. You can also have a few other words here. The word ko is sometimes put in front of it, and that really means the aroma. When I say the aroma becomes very specific and very nice with this, because some people consider it the aroma of home. I stayed in all kinds of places. I stayed in little wee shacks up in the mountains, mountain passages. I stayed in 5-star hotels, and I went to various restaurants and stuff like that. And you could definitely smell the Tsukemono walking into certain places. Some of the top restaurants in the world in Japan, there's literally hundreds of Michelin restaurants in Japan. And when I was there back last October of 2019, my hosts were really featuring us going from one Michelin restaurant to another Michelin restaurant. And my youngest son, Damon, who was with me at that point in time, Yarrow had already gone home when we were doing Japan. And he just couldn't believe the quality of the food they have in Japan. He didn't really quite understand what a Michelin star is. But when you're having Tsukemonos in a 3 Michelin star restaurant, oh my God, it's really good. So really the idea here is to create the fragrance, create the taste, create all those things to be able to pass by your palate, as it were. What they are is really a kind of pickle, but they're nowhere near the same kind of pickle that your grandmother would make. These are live foods. These are tingling. And when it passes your lips into your palate, the first thing you think of is kind of a little bit wimpy. It has a little bit of acidic thing, feels a little bit soft, and you chew it, and sometimes you can get a great crunch. One of the crunchiest, biggest mouthfeels I've ever felt in a food so far was eggplant. What? Eggplant? Eggplant, you would think it'd be kind of soft and kind of pasty. But if you dehydrate it first, before you make the Tsukemono, then it has this crunch. It's absolutely amazing. We're going to be showing those two different techniques here as we go forward. There's all kinds of different ways. So when do you eat it? What do you pair it with? Well, I got to tell you, it has such a great mouthfeel in itself. You can pair it with anything. But I got to admit, one of the biggest places that I pair it with is just me standing in front of the refrigerator and putting it right into my mouth. I think Tsukemono pairs really well with my lips and my tongue and my flavor. But every once in a while, I get caught sneaking it out of the fridge. And so I have to watch if there's a camera around to be able to catch me doing that. But you can see that it's a place in almost every meal. It's used for breakfast, lunch, and supper, snacks. If you're having sake, you're having beer in a restaurant. Lots of times when you go into a restaurant, they just plop it down in front of you immediately as soon as you get there, and that would be some kind of sitting fee. And we'll go into a specific one that's really used heavily in Japan as a sitting fee. It's the way to say that you are there and you're now a customer. And even if you didn't buy any sake, even if you didn't buy any beer or anything like that, you have to pay for this. Sometimes really lousy Tsukemono, sometimes really great Tsukemono, depends where it is. There's three basic techniques that you can get Tsukemonos in. The first one is marinating in liquid, and I'd have to say that's probably the most common and by far the easiest, and that's probably where most people will work with. You can put it in a fermentation bed, and I've been working with this and starting those, and they're absolutely fantastic fermentation beds, how they work. We're not going to have time to really go into those in any kind of detail, but I do have enough material, bonus material as it were, for you to go over and look at. So if you want to make your own at home, you can do it. Or you can just put the bacteria in it. Yes, we're talking that koji, the same thing you make the natto out of, and it works in many different ways. I'm really lucky. I live on Vancouver Island in Comox Valley, and we have a Japanese woman that brings koji, about once or twice every month to the farmer's market. So we can go down and buy little things. I've got the dark, the blonde, and the white koji that I can have, and I'll show you a few of those bottles as we go through. And one of those little bottles will last a household like myself for about a year or so in the fridge. And we eat a lot of Tsukemonos, especially in the summer. We pair that with everything, but we always have about 5 or 6 in the fridge at any given time. Here's an interesting little picture. This is the cells inside of a vegetable. Okay, this is actually a cucumber here, and that's what the cells normally do. But if you dehydrate them, they break and they go like this, and then you rehydrate them in the liquids, it goes like this. Now you can see little bits of vinegar and little bits of the fish sauce or the dashi or whatever you're putting in there, do that. And so it rehydrates it, but it gives it this great crunch that you can work with. So it's really a combination of being able to achieve these things. Now, this is all done as a raw food. It's not cooked at all. And almost always it's given to you cold in that form. I've had a few dishes where it's been incorporated in hot dishes in the gastronomy industry, as it were. So here are the few basic principles of how you do it. Again, I got to put things up to the pickling bed. and you can do the different types of pickling beds. I'll look at those momentarily. The next one is pressure. And pressure is you put it in a container with pressure. In Japan, you have these drop lids that go in and pressure it down. And if you're looking for those, you can find a variety of them on Amazon. Sometimes they have the plastic ones only. Sometimes they have the glass ones. Certainly the Japanese ones are lots of times the glass, and I've got them while I've been in Japan, the Amazon JP, I've been able to get the glass ones, and I have my colleagues over there send me these things on a regular basis. Then the third aspect of it is squeezing it. Once you put it in salt and you're done, this is just like making kimchi or something like this. And you put it in a salt mixture, sometimes a liquid mixture. And then to get the bitterness out of it, you squeeze it as hard. And they say, squeeze it until it rains, squeeze it until it rains. And we'll see some examples as we go along. And lots of times it's marinated in vinegar. Now, even though Western pickles are marinated in vinegar, the type of vinegar we use here are not really strong vinegars. First of all, rice vinegar is one of the biggest one, and umeboshi is another one that's really strong, which is really a brine of the umeboshi plum as it is. So it's not truly a vinegar. In fact, when they go through customs, they're not even registered as a vinegar. So they have a different aspect. So it's not like making a pickle. It's just giving it a little bit of acidity to attract more acidity for it to ferment. But this one here is one of the glass lid ones that I've got in Japan. As you can see, there's a glass weight that you put on it, and you put your things in there. This is a turnip one I'm making, and you'll see them as I go along, the various ones. But truly, there is 10 different mechanisms to make tsukemonos. And obviously, I'm not going to go through all these in any kind of detail, but I did give you notes of what each one of these work. Usually the salt and brine, number one, is one of the most common ones. The vinegar solution is quite common. The sugar solution is kind of like a candied fruit, and I've seen ginger being done that way, but we're going to actually make the gari here as we go along. But you can see that some are just soy sauce. I've got one of those. Again, there's the different beds you can have, the miso bed, the sake lee bed. I was lucky enough to, one of the top Tsukemono people in the world happened to be visiting me here from Denmark, of all things. He wrote the book on unami and mouthfeel and on sushi and the whole way to make tsukemonis. And he gifted me a sake lee, or a sake rice bed, which was really quite exciting for me to be able to get and work with. And so I've been working with that. Again, pickling it or fermenting it just with the koji can be used here. There are several different ingredients you can use, and I'm going to be using these things on and off all the time. So I thought I would just give you a sample of some of the ones that you can use that we use in our kitchen that we have around for making them. Some of them we're going to use in the recipes here today. Some of them are not. And here I go. As you can see, I've got it on silent there so I can talk about this is RMA. It's a type of seaweed that I like really a lot. Asian pears, as you're probably quite well aware of. Bull kelp, or a kombo as it's sometimes called. Sometimes it's called kombo. Whoops, that one I just went through is the koji. I guess I'm going through these really fast. Mirin, very important, a sweet vinegar, and miso, and I've got soy sauce there. These are all different samples of what we're looking at. A lot of these I might have in large different containers and stuff like that. But to me, one of the magic ingredients is uma, or the plum. Here's an example of two umeboshi paste. One I picked up in Japan, one that you can get here, but you can make your own. And I've got a recipe in here how to make your own to be able to work with that. We're lucky enough to have the plums here, so we're making it here ourselves. By far the thing is this umeboshi vinegar, which is not truly a vinegar. I put that stuff in everything. Fish sauce, you can make your own, or you can buy our organic ones here. We're lucky enough to be able to make our own rice vinegar that you can find in the marketplace. All of these are different ingredients you might not use every day, but once you start using them, oh my God, cooking with mirin, I use that sucker on everything. Umeboshi, I make every salad dressing with some kind of uma in it. I haven't put them in all the recipes here because it's a deep umami flavor. Some people find it's too strong. I put fish sauce in some of the ones or not. I've left them optional in the recipes, but you can always take them out if you're a plant-based person with them, but the plums work everywhere. In Japan, again, you can find it almost everywhere. You can find it in these old rustic barrels and little wee shops. You can see it being made in plastic bags, and I've done it certainly in plastic bags and stuff like that. You can also see people selling them just in plastic bags, or you can definitely see them packaged in different ways. On this section, these are all ones that have to be eaten within the next 3 or 4 days, and these ones we can take home. I've even got some pressure sealed bags that I bought back last fall that we haven't opened yet, because they're good for a couple years in that sense. And that bright red one in the middle here, these two here are super crunchy eggplant. And I mean, like your jaw almost hurts. Your mandibular joint sends a tingle up in here when you crunch on it. And the crunch is just such a great feeling for loosening up this joint that it's fun in itself. And it could imagine it, how it works. Here are the 3 different types of pickling beds. Again, I've got more information in your notes on them. I just want to make sure that people know that you can push this as far as you want. The miso bed, you can use it for somewhere around 5 or 10 recipes. Rice brand or the Nukazuke, it can go for generations. Literally, it's often a wedding gift that's given to people on their wedding night, and they might be bequeathing it to their grandchild. Lots of the old houses would have them under the floorboards in them, but some of the places I was at, some of the more modern places, have little special fermentation fridges in their house. And the one that I've been using the most lately is the immersion of a sake leaf, and here you're taking the rice left over from sake and you're using that as a fermentation bed. Now what you do is you take this sake ferment that you can get after they made sake, and we have a lot of sake companies in Canada that are organic. You can get that from those. You just put a little bit of mirin in it, and that's okay. But I've also put a little bit of rice vinegar in that. I like the fish sauce quite a bit, so I'll put some of that in it, and I'll also put a bunch of umabushi and make a little bit of a sloppy rice bed for pickling bed for it. And you can make in that, you can make a pickled ingredient in, well, anywhere from 20 minutes, 2 hours, or you could leave it in there for 6 months, and you can put them in various layers. The biggest problem with that is once you've got them started, it's kind of like having a pet. If I go away for a week or something like that, it has to be treated at least 2 or 3 times a week. It's like having a cat or a dog in that sense, and you have to have someone babysit it. So that's one of the things that we would have to note if you get into rice beds. But I've had a lot of people around that like to borrow my rice beds when I'm gone away. And these are some of the dishes that you can find of various kimonos. So, I mean, oh my God, these look delicious, and the aroma that comes off it and the flavors is just beyond. Of course, one of the biggest things to do is to try to find out where to eat it. Well, you can always go and eat it at the Golden Pavilion. This is one of my most favorite buildings on the planet. This gold structure over here. Yes, that is gold leaf over the whole thing. It is absolutely incredible. Yes, that's my own picture. And going there in Kyoto and being able to sit there on a bench and just look at that while you're eating it. Or you can go into another pavilion there that you can actually go in. This is a restaurant in here, and I've eaten in that restaurant and with Tsukemono, and I had some nice matcha tea made up, and that was my dish that I had there along with some matcha tea. So the environment you eat it in is also important, the quiescence you can have. So let's get into some recipes. Well, almost everybody these days has gone to a yuppie restaurant somewhere and they've had pickled red onions. And lots of times the Western chefs are just taking it, putting a little bit of sugar in it and putting some vinegar over it, leaving it for anywhere from 6 hours to 24 hours. And it worked that way. But you can make it, and you can do that. But you can make it very simply by just taking a little bit of the onions and put in a little bit of salt and water. Well, let's look at how we're doing it here. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to take the actual red onions. We're going to mix it with a little bit of sea salt, and we're going to have some good clean water. As you can see, we're taking, it's about 2%, as you can see from the diagram there, of water and put in it, stirred in. I start off with hot water when I'm doing it, stir it in, and you can stir it up. It'll all get done in a container. This is an ordinary fermentation container. So first of all, what I do is I cut off the ends of the onions, and I peel it and put it aside because they're going to actually dye the onions pink in the long run. It takes about a week to make it. So what you do is you put those peels on the bottom and just shove them in there, and then you start pouring the onions on top. And you just pack them in as much as you can. And as you might remember, you saw me a few minutes ago take some of the salt and put it in the hot water. And what I do is I take one of those little glass things. You can have a droplet. There's many different ways. You put that in there. And as you can see, there's a little bit of salt in the bottom of that container. You just scoop it in and move around. And then you can put a lid on it for a little while. Or for the first day or so, what I actually do, and sometimes 2 days, I would just put a paper towel over top of it and set it to the side. And once you've done that, after about 3 days, up 3 days to a week, then you can put it in your refrigerator. And as long as it's in a tight container, it can last in the refrigerator for a good year. So that's pretty nice, but it's never lasted a year in our household. Oh my God, we put those suckers on everything. Any kind of, you can put them with eggs. If you're, in restaurants, they're great on sandwiches. They're great as a condiment and all kinds of things. You can add them to all kinds of various things. Another one that really an awful lot of you've had is the pickled ginger or gari. You've seen these at little sushi restaurants or whatever. Now, note this one here. This, again, is a top-level restaurant, and see how it looks like a rose blossom. This is the original idea of gari. Is supposed to look, the little pile is close to a rose, and that's one of the reasons it's pink. Now, the gari itself will naturally become pink if it's young enough, soon as the vinegar touches it and starts fermenting it, or if you use the very young parts of it, it'll work like that. But an awful lot of people put sishu leaves with it, the purple sishu leaves with it in it. Well, let's look at how we're doing it. So this is a special ginger pot for keeping the ginger fresh. And this will keep ginger, instead of drying out, especially in Alberta, how it is, you get one of these ginger pots, it'll keep it fresh for almost a year. And you can pull the ginger out of there. Yes, there it is. And you can see it starts to bud in there. See that little bud at the end, how it's pink? Well, that's what will happen. What you do is you want to clean it, and it's best to clean it with a spoon. Now, because it's around our household, I only partially clean it. I find out I don't clean it all the way. You can do it with a mandolin, or you can do it with a sharp knife. Notice this knife. This is a special Japanese knife my colleagues gave me there. Notice my name is carved right into it, and it's made of samurai sword technology. Oh my God, how it's thin. My wife likes to use the mandolin. I like to use the knife to be able to do it. Then you put in the sugar, and I've got the instructions there. You got the salt you put into it. You mix that up, and then you just let it sit there for about, 30 minutes or so. And you can tell when it is. Then you get some boiling water and you put it in. If they're a little thick, you do it for about a minute. If they're fairly thin, you do it for 45 seconds or so. And you can either drain the water off quite a bit when it gets to a certain level. And you can see how some of them are translucent and some of them are not completely. They'll all be translucent in the long run, but these ones here could have been done a little bit more. Then you make the sauce. Then you take the vinegar. You put the vinegar in there, you mix it up, boil it around, let it heat up, and then you just pour it over the whole mixture. Then you add a little bit of water to be able to cover it, and then you put a drop lid on it. That's simple. And you leave it for about a week. At room temperature for at least 24 hours, and in the fridge after that, it can last. You can see this last one. I put some sishu leaves on it. Sishu leaves grow quite well in Alberta. I was growing them when I lived out in the Springbank area there. In fact, these are plants that I brought from there and planted here. Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island is naturalized. It's all over the place. You can use the green. You can use the red. The one in your handout is a green one, but the purple one we like the better. It's partly the flavor and it's partly the overall taste, but that can give you the pink color. Unfortunately, most of the ones you're getting in the restaurants in the market these days, they just put red dye number whatever, and it's not very good for you. That's why an awful lot of people are demanding the blonde one or the undyed one, because that way you know they haven't put these red dyes on it, but you can actually make it naturally red dye. So those are two that you might be familiar with. But the next one I'm going to show you is by far our favorite in our family. We like the kohlrabi Tsukemono. It's the one that we eat the most. We almost always have it in the fridge. We maybe have 2 or 3 batches going at any bit of time. Now you can make it out of the fresh. That works pretty good. And we like it that way. It has a quite a good crunch on it and everything like that. So you just peel it and you cut them up, kind of like a Juilliard them and do that and put them into small pieces, and you put them in the juice and let them ferment there for a while. But it tastes way better if you dehydrate them. So I'm going to show you 2 different ones that I'm making here in this picture here. Here I'm eating ones that I made. This was from a fresh one. It's still very, very good. It has that. And these are the dehydrated one. Now that gives us all kinds of benefits, because dehydrated one at the prime season, we can cut them all up, dehydrate them and everything like that, and then save them for the winter. And here's the various ingredients that we use in it. And they're all to the recipe, as you can see. And all of those are quite normal. Now to this, I often add, here's the bull kelp, but I often add a little bit of fish sauce and a little bit of umabushi. I didn't put those in your recipe, but in my own household, I put both of those. I wanted to make sure you have a vegetarian type alternative. And you just pour all those in. And again, I put umabushi in almost everything because I like it so much. Doesn't matter if it's a Western salad dressing or a soup or a sauce. I put it in my sauerkraut. I certainly put it in my kimchi, and yeah, put that in. Now you can see here. I put a little bit of the other stuff because I want to get some of the bacteria from the old one. Then I have to put a little bit of water on it. As you notice, I put the kelp in there in a dehydrated form because I put the extra water in because I had to dehydrate it anyway. Lots of times what you would do is you would take the kelp and lay it out and soak it for about 30 minutes and then put it in if you want to have a fresh one. But because that was a dehydrated one, we would do it that way. Now here is a general overall basic technique for Tsukemonos. You can see all the ingredients there that we're using on a regular basis, and you can put virtually any vegetable you want in here. Now, notice I put some dashi fish sauce, and I've got anywhere from a tablespoon to half a cup, depending on what you do. Now, you can make that as a mushroom dashi, or a vegetarian, a plant source. Now, you can't really say a mushroom plant source because it's not a plant, it's a fungi, but a plant seaweed fungi support, or you can use the fish depending on what you're doing. I like to put mirin in all kinds of things because I quite like it. It's optional if you want to. I also again put the umabushi vinegar in almost everything too, so I put that in there. It's optional, and I put a little bit of koji in there to have the bacteria going, or I could put it in from the last batch. So I'll often put the batch in. The Japanese red chili, I can use that quite a bit, but as you can see in this recipe here that I'm using, now here I've got cucumbers, and again, in the height of the season, we mandolin them all, we dehydrate them, and now all I have to do is take the sauce that I've already made and take a handful and put it in every week or so into there. So it's a snap. It doesn't take, it's a no-brainer, and I'll guarantee that this pickle, this cucumber, is going to be twice as crunchy if you dehydrate it first before you make it. And I got that trick from Oli, finding out a way to do that, and it really works good. So again, what we do is we have our dehydrated cucumbers, we have our sea salt, we have the fish sauce I put in here in this case, put the mirin in it, put the soy sauce in it, put some rice vinegar in it, put the bull kelp in there, and a little bit of salt. And again, I put some umeboshi in it. And here, instead of using the black chili, what I've done is I've made some chipotle. We have our own peppers here we grow, and I like to smoke them. So I'm just making it a little bit different by crushing up a little bit of chipotle in it. So again, we mix the sauce in there, and I'm putting again the bull kelp in dry. And here's the pepper as you go in. So the chipotle, this is a smoke. So this have a smoke flavor in it. And because I'm using dry and I'm going to put water in anyway, I'll just let it soak in there instead of having it soak individually. And again, we cover it above the edge, stir it around a little bit, and we put a drop press in here. And you press it down fairly firmly. In a day, I'll let the pressure up, let it float up, stir it around a little bit, and then put the pressure down again later to be able to do that. And I'm saying that these pickles, the dehydrated one, I could be eating them the next day really easily. But it tastes the best in about 4 days, and I can keep them, if I haven't already eaten them, up to about 3 or 4 months in the fridge, no problem. And sometimes because you got so many other things going, it might sit there for a while, no problem. And again, find a place to eat it. Here's a little restaurant I found. You go in there. I went out there, and outside there's this beautiful view that you can sit there, again, have a little bit of matcha, have a little bit of tsukemoni, have some mochi balls. All of these things are quite nice to be able to eat and enjoy, but it's nice to be able to have that kind of zen moment for the environment for you to be able to do the whole thing in. This is a very common one. It's called the 1,000 slice turnip. And it's very commonly, you'll find it in many different restaurants in Japan, and it's quite easily. In this case, I'm using a rutabaga because that's what I had out of my garden at this point in time. And so I just you're mandolining them fairly thin as you were. I put some salt down, put the layers of it in a bowl, or in this case, I just use one of those storage dishes, and salt layer through and keep on putting layers and salt it. Then I flip it over and turn it over. Sometimes you might use a bigger bowl so it's easier to get the salt all mixed around, but that's what I had available at that point in time. Then I put them in another type of drop container, and I press them down, and I leave them there for about 2 hours. Then at the end, you can squeeze it, and again, you make it rain. Now I've taken that bulta, the kombu, and hydrated it for about, an hour or so first, cut it up into fine little wee pieces, or fine little wee strips, and put a little bit of salt, mirin, lemon juice, and sugar in with it to make a sauce. And again, I put umeboshi in here, almost always some lemon juice, the wine vinegar, or the rice vinegar, sorry. I mix that in, and you see there's some of the salt and the sugar hasn't quite done it, but I have to put some water, so I'll just pour the water in there, stir it around, and put it over. And then I put another drop lid press in this, and I'll leave it outside for about 2 to 3 days. And then it can last in the fridge for several days. So this would be a turnip one. This one here is the most common sitting fee that you can find in Japan. Almost any little wee bar, any little pub, any little place you go into, before you order, you go in and you sit down, and this will be put in front of you. It could be another tsukemono for sure, but this is the most common because this is the cheapest tsukemono they can make. And it's a cabbage one. But first of all, the first couple of times I had it, I didn't understand why they're put in front of me. But because they're charging me anyway for it, no matter what, not a lot, but it was charged. One of the things I can say is that even though it's one of the most expensive places in the world, And if you're not at the high-end restaurants, you're in the medium and low-end restaurants, the food is excellent. It's very, very economical. Food is so cheap there compared to North America. But what you would do is you would eat this and work with it. But after a while, if I got the nice little tender leaves and stuff like that, it can become really good. So what we do, again, is we just take the thin little parts of the cabbage, we break them up into a bowl. First of all, what we do is we put a bunch of salt on it. We salt the whole thing, and we leave it there for at least 30 minutes, but sometimes up to 2 hours. Again, it's just like making kimchi in that sense. You got to put that on it. I put pressure on it and let it sit there. I've got this one sitting for 30 minutes, and then you squeeze. You can see how it rains. The idea is let it rain, let it rain. Now, this one's going to be a little bit salty. If you don't want it that way, you can put some water all over it and soak it in there, and then let it rain after it. Then after you've let it squeeze and stuff like that, you put the lemon juice on it. You put a little bit of sesame seeds. Now, lots of times I roast the sesame seeds. I've just done this simply. I like to use a combination of the black and the blonde ones just because it's more aesthetically pleasing. Then you let it sit there for, it can sit there for a half hour, 20 minutes, an hour or two is really good. And then you serve it and you eat it kind of fresh. So it's kind of a crispy, but little meal. It's a good little sitting feed. And you can see that they make it earlier in the day and also the bars and great big vats, as it were, and they're serving these things out on a regular basis in most of the various bars that you'll find there. But here's the cucumbers if I wanted to make them fresh. So this is really definitely a quickle, meaning that this is ready to eat, well, pretty fast. I'd say 30 minutes for sure. You can be eating this whole thing. And so let's go look at how we do this one here. What I do is I take some soy sauce. First of all, I cut up the pickles or the cucumbers. Now I'm doing about 1.5 inches to 2 inches and just stacking them in there. I could cut them up really small, but if you do it that way, I found it's too soy. In this case, what I do is I put them and just pour the soy sauce on it. And after a little while, I shake it around and flip it. While I'm doing that, I soak the arame seaweed and flip it again, flip it a couple times. If I want to do it really fast, I'll just do it really sliced down thin and then literally shake it around and do it that way. And then we cut them down. Now it's soaked in a little bit. Like that, cut them relatively thin. Then you put a little bit of sesame oil on it, brown sesame seed oil, which is really good on it. Put some of the arame on it. Stir it up, put the soy sauce back in the whole mixture. Stir the whole thing up, and it's ready to eat right away now. So it's just sat there, and it's a nice little dish. You can be serving that as a little condiment along with all kinds of things, and damn, it tastes great. Can't complain at how it's tasting. So it's a nice, elegant dish you're going to find all kinds of places. And I decided I didn't want to go in and show you one after another, but I do have a few extra recipes in here for you to look at because there's all kinds of things that you can use. Probably one of the most common ones to use is the big daikons. So you can cut very thin the daikons. You mix them with lotus root and carrot. And the kombu there, sometimes it's K-O-N and sometimes it's K-O-N or K-O-M-B-U. There's two different ways. Basically, that's the bull kelp that grows all along the Pacific here. So we have tons of it here. My son's company, Harmonic Arts, sells it and they harvest it here. So we have lots of access to it. Here's another one I make on a fairly regular basis, and it's marinated in turmeric. So by doing this way, I can get the immune functions of the turmeric to be able to work with that and be able to have a golden little treat there, again, as a little bit of a side dish. Now, I've gone on and on about various things, but one of the best things is umabushi, the uma plum. Fortunately, we have some plum trees grow here that we can do this with. And so what we have been able to do, and the recipe is all there. There's many different recipes I've seen, but this is the simplest one, and the one I don't screw up as much, because sometimes they got you setting it to the side here and there for days and stuff like this. But this way, we just take the plum and put it outside under somewhere it won't rain, or in the sun it can be, and just let it dry out a little bit. And after you let it dry out for 3 days or so, then you put it in a pickling jar. Now, what I'm usually doing here is I'm usually putting them in an ordinary sauerkraut one. I'm usually using the 5 liter or maybe the 7.5 liter one, so I can pack it fairly full. And this way I'll make my own umabushi vinegar in this process. So even though I showed you the store-bought one, I literally have gallons around. That's maybe one of the reasons I put that sucker in everything, because it tastes so good. But then you put it in the crock pot, you weight it down with the salts and stuff like that, and let it sit there. You bring it out and you dehydrate it over a couple times usually, and then you take it out and then you just store it in a jar. It's got a very sour and very salty taste. In fact, it's one of the most alkaline foods of all. I remember once, a long time ago, I used to have a clinic in Hong Kong, and I was going back and forth once every month or sometimes 2 months. And I also had a college and clinic in Vancouver. And I came back one time out of Hong Kong, and I was just really, really sick. I ate some bad food just before I left Hong Kong. In fact, I had to leave a day late because I couldn't make my plane. I was so sick. Coming back, yeah, this is the problem of being an adventurer and going all over the place. And I came back and I went to my favorite sushi restaurant in Kitsilano. I walk in there and they knew me quite well because it was right across from my condo there. And the lady who owned the place looked at me and says, "You don't look so good." "Yeah, I just flew in from Hong Kong and I ate some bad food there a couple of days ago. And I just want some miso soup." And she says, no, you sit down. And she took some umabushi plums, she crushed it up, put some hot water and stirred it around. Said, "Now you drink that fast." And I drank that, and it's a little bit sour and very salty in its nature. But it was in 10 minutes or so, it just made me feel way, way better. So you can make it in different grades, and umabushi can be used for all kinds of things. So this is a very long history of tsukemonos in Japan. You can see them in different types of rice beds. It's been there for millennia. We do know that some temples were serving it in the 4th century CE, but there's good evidence in writing that it was actually, the 3rd or 4th century BCE. It can be used in many things. It's a very active culture still, no pun intended, in Japan. You can get it in rows upon rows of various things, and we're starting to see it more here. But I gotta say, while I was making this whole thing up, and we were actually in the kitchen working on it, my wife, Alexandra, was in the process of making apple cider. So a long time ago, one of my most common things I prescribe for digestion for my patients is a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of honey. You put it in a third to a full cup of warm water. You stir it around and drink it before breakfast and maybe for supper. Well, Alexandra has found out that that's one of the best things for her to be able to do. And we have about 8 apple trees here, and we've been making apple stuff with everything. At this time of year, we start making apple cider vinegar. And apple cider vinegar is so easy to make, it's a shame to ever buy it. It tastes so good this way. It tastes like 10 times better. You'll never want to go back. And you can make it with just apple juice, but this is what we're doing. This is what she was doing yesterday.
Apple cider vinegar. Beautiful apples from the land here. And this is the apple cider vinegar with the mother. This is how we start by choosing it. Of course, washing the apples, cutting them down. Here is the left from last year.
There's the mother.
That is gold worth. It has to be messy, otherwise it doesn't taste as good. Putting the juice just as it is into the bottle, and I'm using small bottles, so just that I have a little bit
1 liter bottles.
Control, just in case something goes wrong and it gets moldy, but it usually doesn't. Adding the own apple cider vinegar, mother to it, put a paper towel over top, labeling it and leave it standing out in the house for 3 months. After 3 months, that would be your vinegar. Oops, there is some leftovers.
The nice thing about making it yourself is a lot of pulp left over. And so my loving wife makes apple kuchen out of it, and I have to deal with eating the apple kuchen after it to be able to do it. She's not a bad side product, a byproduct of the whole thing. So if you want to find more about this, of course, they've got all kinds of courses and things at the Light Cellar, but you can get a hold of us at Wild Rose College. We have anywhere from a 1-hour course to a 1 to 3 year herbal diploma programs, all done online and various things. And one of the courses we have there, I taught with Malcolm back in 2013 and 14. It's available still, Fermentation for Life. Or Alexander has our Wisdom of the Cosmic Garden, and that's a little video that she was making for that course, showing you how to be able to work with a lot of the things your garden. So she grows them, I preserve them. I got all kinds of smoking recipes and stuff like that. So if you want to get a hold of me more, you can get a hold of me either through the college. I do have a Twitter account, but I don't use it that much. But I do answer my blog page on a fairly regular basis and work with that. And I'm going to stop sharing this now so I can be able to be looking at you and leave it open to see if there's any questions that I don't know if these questions are going to be given to me by Malcolm or I should just read through them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Terry Willard. We've gotten some great comments on this presentation. Like, this was a world-class presentation on pickling.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Denny here.
I can tell it's you, Denny. Nobody would forget your voice.
Yeah, this was absolutely fascinating. We got some good questions coming through. Well, I got a question from Donna.
Yeah, and I think this is while you were doing the basic recipe. She asks, how much umeboshi would you add to this?
Oh, it really comes again to your flavor, and that's the whole thing. So even though in Japan they're fairly strict with their recipes, lots of times they have various aspects you just do to taste. So I would usually put about 1/4 to 2 tablespoons in. Myself, I'm usually around the 1 tablespoon level for a container that size.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we've got Jody asks, is there a book for starters you'd recommend? She says the Japanese style is fascinating.
Yes, and I would say there's about 6 or 7 that are on Amazon. And sorry, I don't have them right on top here for me to go through them, but there's a couple just called Tsukemono, and they're excellent. There's one called just Asian Fermentation that's really great, and you can get these usually as a Kindle, and if you're on Amazon Prime, you can get them free in their loaning library, or if you're like me, you get the one that's on Kindle and use it for a while and see how great the pictures are. I don't want to look at it in black and white, so I put it over my iPad. And after looking at that for a while, I go out and buy the hardback anyway. So now I've got it 3 times. So there's all kinds of ones that you can find that for.
Okay. All right. Vitalia says, just a simple paste can safely ferment vegetables? ? Doesn't always need a liquidy brine?
Absolutely. Again, to put it in perspective, these things have been used for thousands of years and they've been handed down from generation to generation. That's how powerful it is. And it can be done in a very, very short period of time. So it's amazing. And it's actually just bacteria that's in there, and it's quite safe. It's kind of hard to overemphasize how easy this is to do. And no problem, because it's no different than making yogurt or making kefir. So really what it is, as soon as you get this fermentation bed, or the fish sauce, the dashi is already a fermentation in itself, or the soy sauce, you got real fermented soy sauce, sujoi sauce, whichever one. I use tamari mostly, or I know you like using sujoi an awful lot. Either one of those have actually got that koji bacteria in it. They would say that this bacteria is the hardest working bacteria in the world because it's what they make sake with, it's what they make miso with, it, what's make soy sauce with it, etc., etc. I like the tamari because that's the fluid that's off the miso mostly, but you can find these things, and the bacteria are in large enough abundance in here that it can really, well, basically what it's doing is the culture is creating its own biofilm, and this is a good positive biofilm, and what that's doing is coming back and being able to work with the whole thing.
It's amazing. Hey, that's one of the most common sort of comments we're getting during this whole festival is like how it is actually like so easy.
It really is very easy.
So I've got a question here from Candace. Other than cucumbers, what other things would you suggest dehydrating before making the quickles?
Well, I would say that here's where your creativity shines for. So I'm doing kohlrabi on a regular basis. I'm doing cucumbers on a regular basis. I'm doing eggplants. I've done the carrots. We've done parsnips. We've done the cabbage itself, especially the Shanghai cabbage, that little one. I've done Napa cabbage for sure. Those are the ones that come to mind. But literally what we're doing is when we're in season, we make them lots of times with the fresh stuff, and it's coming near the end of the season. We got a whole bunch left over. We just take it and dehydrate it. Because let's say cabbage, I would say we probably eat just as much dehydrated cabbage as we do ordinary cabbage. Yeah, we like making sauerkraut. We make quite a bit of it here, and we like making kimchi and stuff like that. But we end up with so much that we dehydrate a whole bunch of it. You just take a handful of that and throw it in a soup or a stew, and it comes out nice and crispy and really sweet. But we're also taking just a handful of that and put it in the Tsukemono pot to be able to make some pickles and things like that. So whatever vegetable that you feel comfortable with dehydrating, and it doesn't have to be a vegetable. I've done this with we have an Asian pear tree here, or Asian apple pear tree here, and when we're going to the end of the season there, we cut it all up and dehydrate it. We've done the same thing with pears, and we put that in the Tsukemono thing, so now it's a salty one. Sometimes we poach them before we do this, but lots of times we just throw that in. So it's an open palette that you can test on your palate, but it's an open flavor thing for you to go with your own creativity. And just look on the internet and find all kinds of various recipes. It's starting to be kind of popular. It's as I say, it's just coming over the horizon of Japan with the rising sun and passing past some of us Guela, or should I say, some of us foreign devils' tongues for us to be able to look with it. Gaijin.
Okay, I've got a good question for you, Dr. Terry Willard, and perhaps you can enlighten us on the sour flavor itself as a remedy, because that's what seems to unite all these pickles, is this flavor. And what can you tell us about what the sour flavor does to the human body?
It can do many, many things, the sour flavor. The sour flavor, so our stomach represents this kind of sweet flavor, but our sour works in our spleen and helps our digestion. But it's very interesting to note, and I'm really glad you brought this question up, because when you look at this whole COVID thing that's been going on, we know its original epicenter was China. But right beside China, you have Japan and you have Korea. Their levels have been so low. In fact, it wasn't until about 2 months ago that Korea had their first death to have with it. And Japan hardly got any at all. And now we have places that are much more congested. Seoul's very congested. Tokyo, to put it in perspective, has more people in Tokyo than we have in Canada, the second largest country by space in the world. And Tokyo has more people than us, and they hardly got it at all. Now, part of it was they were big maskers over there, but they're mostly eating a lot of ferments. Even in Germany, of all the European countries, Germany got hit the lightest, and they're eating sauerkraut. And kimchi is not an option in Korea. It's served with every meal. And the Tsukemonos are served with almost everything. So that sour flavor is actually building up the microorganisms in our body. And there's no question that vitamin D is one of the most important things you can have, but vitamin K is extremely important too. So that natto that we just saw, these are things that actually build up our immune system. Sometimes it's actually doing fire drills for our immune system, but sometimes it's actually feeding the communication system with our immune system. So spleen qi is kind of an interesting concept in Chinese medicine. It really doesn't have anything to do with a physiological organ called the spleen. It really has to do with how our mitochondria works in every little cell in the body. It's kind of our body's spleen, our cell spleen. It works how we handle energy. And it helps give us a thing with the Chinese call wei qi that balances out these things. So that sour flavor, damn, it protects our immune system. It keeps those nasty organisms away. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, eat more sour, eat more ferments. That's great.
Absolutely. Ferments are the way to go, especially when we're in this time. So I'm a big vitamin D and sour thing. Of course, I'm going for medicinal mushrooms like crazy and several other things, but CBDs, some of the whole cannabis family work on that too. But it does come down to the sour flavor really helps us.
Okay, awesome. Looks like we have one more question to finish it off. So Min Min says she's noticed that you use dashi and fish sauce interchangeably. She understands dashi as fish stock and fish sauce as super salty brown sauce.
It is.
I'm assuming you mean the fish stock, and thank you so much for your presentation.
So really, I'm mashing the whole things together. So we're lucky enough that we have tons and tons and tons of herring out here, and you can go down with a case of beer and give it to a fisherman in the spring, and he'll give you one of those big white buckets full of herring, and I can take it home and I can ferment it, make my own fish sauce. And that's great. It stinks a little bit, but we leave it outside, and what's left over from the fish sauce, we use the fertilizer in our fields. We like that. But you can also make it out of mushrooms and vegetables. And so dashi is kind of you can get some dashi in some countries. It's actually a fish-based one, or dashi in some countries is just a mushroom-based one. Some places is a yeast one. So there's many things that you can use instead of just straight fish sauce. But the major one I'm using is the same kind of one that you would buy in maybe your store or one of the health food stores in Calgary that sells in the little wee bottles. I just happen to have it in the gallon containers because I'm making it myself.
Awesome. Well, we have really appreciated all your wisdom this evening. Thank you so much, Terry. And I'm looking forward to going through that incredible 25-page booklet. I mean, when they were asked, what's a good starter book? I was like, well, what Terry just sent us is absolutely incredible. So really appreciate you spending your time with us this evening. And I know I always love listening with you. And someone else had commented that. They're like, I could listen to Terry for hours. So we want to wrap up this evening with a little bit of a giveaway. The only trick is that you need to be in Calgary to be able to access your prize. So Terry, would you like to offer a skill testing question to the audience based upon your presentation? What would be a good question that the first person that could answer it will win a jar of natto, little container?
I put that shit in everything. What is that?
Yeah, what is it that Dr. Terry Willard puts in
I
everything?
see that Kyle got it immediately. Oh, Ashley got it, everyone. It's umabushi or uma or that plum sauce. I put that stuff in everything.
All right, awesome. Eli, come on back up here, and you can choose the next skill testing question that we want to put out there.
Great to see you guys' faces, by the way.
Yeah, awesome.
How long did the Bacillus subtilis last on the NASA satellite?
Oh, good one. Good one. Okay.
Right at the end of my presentation, I can tell you that it's more than a week.
6 years. Okay, who got that one? Just all? Ashley. Wow, she is quick and on it tonight. Amazing. Denis, do you have a final skill testing question to put out there for our third container of natto?
Okay, what is the strange, sticky substance, the biofilm in the natto called in Japanese?
Oh,
That strange sticky substance.
Cheese.
jeez, not quite.
The answer is also on my Instagram.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah, if you didn't catch that, so you can quickly reference why natto on Instagram. It's not bacillus, so that's the name of the organism, the Bacillus subtilis. So we're looking for no, there's some great answers.
Excellent answers for sure.
Yeah. So we've had Bacillus subtilis, that's the name of the organism. We had nattokinase, that's the name of the enzyme. Still waiting. So you can check why natto Instagram. While you're on that page, you can just hit follow.
I guess it's that was a hard question, hey?
It was a good one. Yeah.
You have another question, Dean? Want to change out?
Someone's gonna get it. Someone's gonna find it, and whoever it is, we'll give it a few more minutes and let that answer surface. So,
Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Terry Willard. I know personally, I'm just bubbling over with even more questions for you. So I bet you we're gonna have some more conversations about fermentation, the benefits of this wondrous food. I bet you we're going to have more conversations in the future about this.
We will, because every culture on the planet has some kind of ferment. They always have a fermented alcohol. Oh my God, I hope you have some of that there. And there's fermented meats, there's fermented vegetables. Come on, ferments are run the world. Let's put it this way. Over 75% of the history of our planet has had microorganisms as the major organisms of the planet. We've been around for a mere second or so. They lived for over 3.5 billion years on the planet. And so maybe these things did come in on some panspermia things. Maybe that's the whole way that we actually started. Maybe, just maybe, we're just sacks carrying the microorganisms around and running around on land, so we didn't have to hang out in the oceans all the time. Take that.
Awesome. Cool. All right. And we want to thank Eli Ross for his incredible presentation. That was amazing. A deep dive into these two incredible ferments. So thanks everyone that's been joining us for the live presentation and who will be watching forever after. We have these recordings now. We can replay them, watch, learn, and we also, of course, have those recipe handouts. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. And we'll be starting again next Monday for the second week of Calgary Fermentation Festival Online Edition 2020. And over the weekend, get fermenting, right? What has stuck out for you this week that you want to put into action right away? It's been amazing hearing the feedbacks, seeing the pictures of the ferments. That's what this is about, putting this knowledge into practice right away. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just choose one. If you're inspired, choose two. If you're super ambitious, choose three. But that's how we're going to move ourselves forward down this path, is just one ferment at a time. And yeah, we've got all the resources. We've got a great community here to support you on this journey. And as we heard from Terry, these bacteria, they are our allies in this time, this day and age, more than ever. So let's create the culture.
May the microbes be with you, everybody.
Okay, what's the answer, Jasalt? Oh, no, we haven't found the answer yet. Yeah.
Technically, that's probably the closest answer we've had.
Okay.
Yeah, not the Japanese words for it, but it's the closest answer we've had. That is a correct answer, to be honest.
So we'll take that as the answer. All right. All
The
right.
answer on my Instagram was nibba nibba. The sticky business of natto is called nibba nibba. So
All right. Well, thanks everyone for playing along. We've got those names. We got that natto for our winners.
come on down and pick it up.
Yeah. Awesome.
See you
And
next week.
yeah, bye for now.